Samsung has launched another affordable mid-range smartphone with the Galaxy A27. At first glance, it looks more modern than its predecessor because Samsung has finally replaced the older teardrop notch with a punch-hole camera. The phone also gets a new Snapdragon processor and at least 6 gigs of RAM. However, the Galaxy A27 does not only bring improvements. Samsung has downgraded the water resistance, the ultra-wide camera, and even the Bluetooth standard. At the same time, the phone starts at 350 euros in Germany. In this review, we will take a closer look at the design, display, software, performance, battery life, and cameras to find out whether the Samsung Galaxy A27 is actually worth buying. Samsung continues to use its current design language. The back is flat, the 3 cameras are arranged vertically, and the overall design looks simple and clean. The glossy glass back feels relatively premium, although it attracts fingerprints very quickly. The surrounding frame is still made of plastic. The Galaxy A27 measures 162 by 78 mm, is 7.8 mm thick, and weighs around 200 grams. In Germany, it is available in black, blue, and light pink. The display is protected by Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. Now, one disappointing change is the water resistance. The Galaxy A26 had an IP67 rating and could officially survive temporary submersion in water. The Galaxy A27 is only IP64 certified. This means it is protected against dust and splashing water, but it is no longer officially protected against being submerged. For a newer model, that is a clear downgrade. The fingerprint scanner is still integrated into the power button on the side. Now, one positive side, Samsung has kept the microSD card slot. The 128 gig version comes with 6 gigs of RAM in Germany, while the 256 gig version includes 8 gigs of RAM. The storage can be expanded by up to 2 terabytes. However, this is a hybrid slot. This means that you have to choose between using a second physical SIM card or a microSD card. The front is dominated by a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 2340 by 1080 pixels and a refresh rate of up to 120 Hz. The screen looks sharp, colors are vibrant, and black areas are displayed perfectly thanks to the OLED technology. The 120 Hz refresh rate makes scrolling and animation look noticeably smoother. When the phone is idle, the refresh rate can drop to 60 Hz to reduce power consumption. The most notable visual change is the new Infinity O display. Samsung has finally replaced the teardrop-shaped notch of the previous model with a more modern punch-hole camera. However, the bottom chin and the side bezels are still relatively large compared to some competing smartphones. In automatic brightness mode, the display reaches around 800 nits across the entire screen. When measuring a smaller white area, it reached almost 1100 nits. This makes the display readable outdoors, although it is not exceptionally bright for the price. There is no official support for HDR10 or Dolby Vision, but thanks to White Vinyl L1 certification, you can still stream content from services such as Netflix in full HD. Samsung has also saved money on the speakers. The Galaxy A27 does not offer a stereo speaker setup and only uses one speaker at the bottom. Now, the maximum volume is fine, but music sounds thin and lacks depth. It is acceptable for occasional videos, but headphones provide a much better experience for movies and gaming. The Galaxy A27 launches with Android 16 and Samsung's One UI 8.5 interface. The software includes plenty of customization options as well as features such as Quick Share, Smart Switch, and Samsung Knox Vault, which protects sensitive information. The phone also includes several AI-based features. The object eraser can remove unwanted elements from pictures, while the voice transcription feature can convert recordings into text and create summaries. However, you do not get the full selection of Galaxy AI features found on Samsung's more expensive smartphones. Samsung DeX is also not supported. Now, one of the biggest advantages is the long software support. Samsung promises 6 generations of Android and One UI upgrades, as well as 6 years of security updates. According to the German product page, security updates are planned until 31st of July 2032. That is excellent support for a mid-range smartphone. However, it remains to be seen whether the relatively modest processor will still provide a smooth experience after several major software updates. The Galaxy A27 is powered by the Snapdragon 6 Gen 3. It replaces the Exynos processor found in the previous generation. Now, in benchmarks, the Galaxy A27 performs slightly better than the Galaxy A26. However, the performance is still rather average for the price. Basic tasks such as messaging, navigation, video playback, and browsing social media work reliably. However, you may notice occasional delays when multitasking or frequently switching between several applications. Animations do not always look completely smooth, and some applications need a moment before responding. Galaxy A27 is also only suitable for casual gaming. Less demanding games run reasonably well, but you will have to reduce the graphics settings in more demanding titles. Competing phones from Poco, Redmi, OnePlus, and Nothing sometimes provide significantly more performance for a similar amount of money. One positive aspect is the thermal performance. Even under prolonged load, the phone remains relatively cool. During stress testing, there was hardly any performance loss caused by thermal throttling. The low temperature are certainly pleasant, but they do not compensate for the fairly limited overall performance. The Galaxy A27 has a battery with a typical capacity of 5000 mAh. Samsung advertises up to 23 hours of video playback. In a standardized active use battery test, the phone achieved a score of 12 hours and 40 minutes. This is an improvement compared to the previous model. With moderate usage, the battery should normally last through a full day. However, heavy users who frequently record videos, play games, use navigation, or stream content may have to recharge the phone before the end of the day. The web browsing endurance in particular is weaker than expected. The Galaxy A27 supports a maximum charging speed of 25 watts. Samsung states that the battery can reach up to 45% after 30 minutes. In the independent charging test, it reached approximately 50% during the same period. A complete charge took around 88 minutes. That is slow for a modern mid-range smartphone. Wireless charging is not supported, and Samsung does not include a charger inside of the box. Now, there are 3 cameras on the back. The main camera has a resolution of 50 pixels and an optical image stabilization. It is joined by a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. The ultra-wide angle camera is another downgrade compared to the previous generation. The Galaxy A26 had an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, while the new model only offers 5 megapixels. Now, the main camera produces usable pictures in good lighting conditions. Colors have Samsung's typical vibrant look, with green and blue tones receiving a slight boost. The dynamic range is decent, and pictures usually look attractive when viewed on the phone. However, when you zoom in, fine textures look noticeably soft. The amount of detail decreases further when taking pictures indoors. The ultra-wide camera is the weakest part of the camera system. Its resolution is low, fine details look muddy, and the sharpness decreases considerably towards the edges of the images. It is sufficient for occasional landscape or group pictures in good lighting, but its image quality is below the standard. The 2 megapixel macro camera does not add much value either. The low resolution makes it difficult to capture close-up pictures. The 12 megapixel front-facing camera performs better, surfaces contain a good amount of detail, skin tones look relatively natural, and the dynamic range is respectable. In low light conditions, pictures from the main camera become visibly softer. However, the phone still manages to balance bright and dark areas reasonably well. The main camera can record video at up to 4K and 30 frames per second. However, electronic stabilization is only available when recording in Full HD. As a result, 4K footage can look shaky when walking or moving the phone. The ultra-wide camera and the front-facing camera are both limited to Full HD video recording. So, the Galaxy A27 offers a good 120Hz AMOLED display, expandable storage, solid battery life, and an excellent long-term software support. However, the IP64 rating, weak ultra-wide camera, single speaker, average performance, and slow charging are clear disadvantages. It also starts at €350 in Germany, while the higher tier Galaxy A37 starts at €430. At its full launch price, the Galaxy A27 is difficult to recommend. It will become a more interesting option once the price drops significantly.